for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion?
We're seeking a motion to appoint Trustee Benucci as this evening's chair.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Trustee Peck?
No.
Trustee Rassich?
Yes.
Trustee Wajowski?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. We're seeking a motion to approve the minutes of the joint meeting with the Historic Preservation Commission and the Committee of the Whole workshop held on May 23rd.
So move. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Presidential comments?
First of all, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for the victims in Orlando for the terrible tragedy that occurred there. So if we could take a moment. Thank you. And on a different note, Representative Batnick shared something kind of nice and kind of interesting with us. There's an organization called Zippia, and they go out and measure all kinds of things. You can always find something on the web, some kind of statistic somewhere. But this group measured the hardworking capabilities over 2,200 communities, and we're happy to say that Plainfield, Illinois came in second as out of 10 of the top hardworking communities in the country. So I thought that was kind of a fun thing to share. It's Zippia.com. And that's all I have.
Trustees' comments? If there are no trustee comments, this would be the time for public comments. No public comments. We'll proceed with the workshop. The first item on the agenda is Vista Point Concept Plan.
Thank you. And if I may just give a brief introduction and then turn things over to the applicant. The petitioner in this case is seeking input and direction from the village board in this informal setting based on the concept plan that's before the board tonight. Some of the trustees may have some history and some recollection. The project's been before the village board a number of times in the past, beginning back in 2005 timeframe when the project was originally approved for annexation by annexation agreement with a concept plan. Subsequent to that, the property owner and developer did proceed to a plan development and preliminary plat stage and had a preliminary plat approved for a portion of the project in 2008. And then obviously when the economic and housing markets turned at that time, the project did not move forward to construction. In the interim, in the 8 years or so in between, there have been a number of changes. I touched on a handful in the staff memo that gave an introduction to the project. And I know the applicant will review those in detail, but I believe the request and the approach this evening is to get some informal feedback and direct feedback at this early stage in advance of having the applicant pursue any formal entitlement applications in terms of revisiting the annexation agreement or a preliminary plat to address those changes that have occurred subsequent to that 2008 approval. So at this time, I would invite representatives for the property owners to initiate their presentation.
Good evening. I'm Mike Shoppy with Shoppy Design Associates. We've been the land planners working on this project for all of that time, going back to 2005. Good to be back here in front of you again to talk about the project. We look forward to making some progress with it, actually. And of course, with me tonight is Tom Small with TMJ Development, the owners of the property. And we'd like to review, as John said, we'd like to review some of the changes that we've considered, get your input on that, and hopefully come back with a formal application for some re-entitlement to the property that we think better meets the needs of the market at this point in time. So I'm going to touch base just on those major changes. First of all, we've got the old plan. Okay, we've got the old plan and the new plan. The original plan had a 40-acre park or school and park site, and that was back in 2005 or 2008 when we identified that. We've met twice now, most recently back, I think it was in February, we had correspondence with the school district, and they've decided that they would rather take cash for this development rather than having land set aside for a school. So they were no longer interested in that 40-acre school site. I think originally it was going to be planned for an elementary and middle school. They felt that the school needs can be met elsewhere. So their position at this point is that they'd like to have cash. So really, that's a big change. That puts 40 acres back into the project to do something with, to do some development work with. Related to that was the park sites. And we've had follow-up meetings with the park district, and it's their position right now that they'd like 2 parks, one north of Walker and one south of Walker, in the 5 to 7 acre range. And so we've accommodated that in this plan. And that their recommendations are based on the change that's taken place back, I think it was 2014, when we annexed the Cumble property just to the east of this property. It also has a park in it. So with those 3 parks, they felt that the park needs of the community, of the residents, were going to be met. So another slight change. We had a change in the commercial area. On that original plan, there was 20 acres of commercial down at Walker and Ridge Road. We're looking to reduce that and modify that down to 10 acres of residential, 10 acres of commercial. And the reason for that is right across Ridge Road to the west, Harmony Grove, there's 20 to 30 acres of land. Now that's been annexed into the village and entitled for the 20 to 30 acres of commercial. We also have 20 acres of commercial, not part of this project, but the Argadellis property at Ridge and Wheeler that has been entitled. And we don't feel, one, there's not the market, but moreover, we wouldn't be able to compete with a 20-acre site with those other 2 pieces of commercial property. So we're proposing to reduce that what was 20 acres of commercial down to 10 acres of commercial. Another change on the original plan, there was a clubhouse facility in the southeast corner just north of Walker. Times have changed. A lot of things have changed since that plan was approved, and those amenities were available to the residents. They're very costly to run by the HOA, and quite frankly feel that you're just too costly for a project like this for the HOA to bear the burden of those costs. So our thinking is to eliminate that small clubhouse facility that we had. In terms of the housing product, there is changes to the plan as well. Back in the original plan, at the time it made sense, but at the time we had a lot of townhomes. We had, on the original plan, about 55% of the product was townhomes. And these days, that's way too heavy on the townhome side. So with we wanted to reduce the amount of townhomes. And so now with the numbers with this plan, that percentage would be down about 33%, which we feel is a much better balance of townhomes. And in the trade-off to that is incorporating a different mixture of single-family lots throughout the project. Here we're proposing 6, 8, 9, and 10,000 square foot lots of various lot widths. As you might remember, back in 2014, when the Cumble property was annexed, that again just to the east, now that was brought in with three lot sizes for that program: 8,000, 9,000, and 10,000 square foot lots. So certainly what we're proposing here meshes very nicely with that project. On the west side of Ridge, on Harmony Grove, in addition to the commercial that I mentioned earlier, we also have townhomes, multifamily townhomes on that property, but it's also entitled for small lot single family as well, 6,000 square foot lots. Granted, obviously nothing's been built, but the entitlement is there. So we're thinking of that the lot mixture we have is poised to better meet the market demands, but at the same time it's fitting in well with the trend of development in this area. The southern part of the project, which is where the original plans called for a senior active adult type of project, don't see that happening, don't see the demand for that happening for a long, long time. What we'd like to get input on and consider our changes would be to change from what was townhomes and duplexes for a senior product and change that to 6,000 and 8,000 square foot single family lots along with a neighborhood of townhomes. Now these would not be age targeted or age restricted any sort like that. These would just be normal for sale single family lots. And we know that the architectural quality is important no matter what the lot size is, and we think we've got a good plan here. One, it better meets the market demands that we're gonna be facing. It fits within the trend of development. It fits well with what's happening and what's been entitled around us. And moreover, it gets the village a chance to review the architecture at a later time when we have a builder come forward. I think we were required when Cumble came in to have the village review and approve the architecture, and that architecture needed to be in compliance with your residential design guidelines. That would be the basis for approval or denial, as the case may be. And I think that's good control. That's a good planning tool that you have at your disposal. And we would certainly think that applying that type of additional review and control on the village's part would be good. And that's certainly acceptable to us. So those are some of the major changes, and hopefully I've given you some of the rationale behind those changes, and look forward to some input and direction and coming back.
What school district would the children in the proposed development attend?
Sorry?
What school district would or what schools would the children in the proposed development attend?
You know, that hasn't been identified yet. Obviously, that's going to be a call by the school district. Now, we will, development, before those kids are actually in the system, will be some time. And even if we could ask the school district, and we will when we come back with a formal application, we'll have that clarified. Although I'm sure they're going to say, when those students actually come in, they may have a slight redistricting depending on the pressures of the other schools, and by the time our kids are actually reaching the schools, they may change their mind. But we will certainly find that out when we come back next time.
And how many more lots were you able to get from the development without the clubhouse and without the school on the acreage? How many, an approximate?
Yeah, well, right now, the total unit count is 1,391, and I believe the original entitlement was for 1,241. So that's a difference of 150 approximately, 150 units.
And the utilities are somewhat nearby, right? That it's
No, they're still east of County Line Road. County Line Road would be a half mile to our east, and the utilities that are planned to service this property will come from the east down Walker, and they're still east of County Line Road. And we're looking for Springbank. That's been the original plan, that as Springbank develops further to the west, those utilities will get extended, and then we'll eventually pick them up, hopefully at County Line Road, and extend them into our property.
do you have any reasons against making them 8,000 square foot lots, the 6 to 8?
Well, we don't have anything against it because we are proposing a fair number of 8,000 square foot lots. I think the rationale is it's another product line to introduce to the market. Now, we're seeing, you've seen age-targeted and age-restricted 6,000 square foot lots for years. That's pretty
Right.
common. But what we're seeing more and more is smaller lots, 6,000 square foot lot. And what that means is usually a 60-foot wide lot, and depending on how deep, 100 to 120 foot of depth. But we're seeing more desire for the market, the beginning home buyer, the move-up home buyer, to have a smaller lot, or at least have an option to move into a home on a smaller lot, obviously less maintenance. Seeing more of that, and that's why we'd like to consider including that here. Now, the 8s, 9s, and 10,000 square foot lots, just for reference, just like was approved in Cumble, the 8,000 square foot lot would have a 64-foot wide lot width. And then as we move up to the 9,000s, they would have 72 feet, and the 10,000s would have 80. So by bringing in a 6,000 square foot product, that lot width goes down to 60, and that's just another market and another option for the residents to have.
Well, from my personal point of view, I'd like to see the project developed. I would like it to stay consistent with the Cumble property of 8,000 square feet or more.
Any other comments? Looks like Bill has something on his mind.
Well, not really. I heard the presentation and the discussion at the Plan Commission, so I'm pretty familiar with it. I too would like to see it developed. I think it makes some sense. The part that's probably most important from my point of view is the design standards, maintain those. I know we've had a issue around lot size for a long time. Originally, the standard is 12,000 square foot, and we've been cutting back on that for a variety of reasons, and I don't have any real problem with doing that. It's more important to have good-looking communities that look good for a long period of time, and that's where the design standards come into play. So I like the idea. Ask Alan, do we have the services that are, do we have any problem providing services to this area to the quantity of houses they're talking about?
No, actually, as part of the Springbank and Creekside project, the water and sewer lines were oversized to accommodate this area. This is within our facility planning area, so that's really not an issue. Although that being said, the water and sewer mains are at least a half-mile away in that range, so there would be some effort to bring the utilities to this property out here. And we would anticipate that the developer would, participate in that, if not pay 100% of that too as well. So that would be an item to look at in the future as far as the annexation agreement. It would be a good extension of our utilities, but again, it's at the discretion of the board as to whether you're comfortable with the product that the developer is bringing. So I don't know if we worked through some of the cost estimates as far as water and sewer extension, or if you can speak to that, or if it's too early in the process. But there is capacity.
And I think it is too early in the process, Alan, to put those numbers together. Largely will depend on where we're actually picking it up from at the time of development. Where will Springbank be? And obviously that contributes to the cost. But we haven't run those type of analysis yet.
We've had many conversations over lot sizes. If you change the 6s to 8s, what's the total number of homes then that you would have in this development ballpark? If you had to change it to 8,
If we change,
if you change the 6,000 square foot lots to 8,000 square foot lots, I know it's a reduction, obviously. So what number are you? What would you guess you're looking at?
second, to 180, 190 down, probably about a 50 to 75 lot reduction.
Okay. So, and my next question is, I'm not in favor of the 6,000 square foot lots. I don't want, less than 8, I'm not in agreement with. But what gets, when you're looking at this whole plan, are you doing spec buildings, spec homes, townhomes, whatever? What gets built first, I guess?
Take a shot at addressing that. I think this is the 14th year I think I've been before this group on various projects. Obviously, the world has changed for both of us since we started doing this in 2000. A project like this is much harder for us to do today than doing a whole project as it was back in Grant Park and all those other ones. I would like to say today that the problem we have is no one in today's world is going to come in and develop 500 acres. That's the thing of the past. So as we look at this project, we actually have to break it down into pieces of a puzzle so it all fits together, because that's the way it's going to be developed. So I can't say today who our buyer will be. We do know that Plainfield is a very desirable place to be, and we know that Plainfield is running out of lots. And obviously, we feel that this is a great place, as we've had many conversations about lot size you and I have had.
Yes, we have.
It's much what Bill said. I think it's more about the quality of the product. Whether it's a 6,000 single-family lot or a 12,000 square foot duplex, I don't know, it could be more duplexes. It's kind of, I think there's good product out there in a 60-foot wide lot. And I think that as you well know, I'm not as concerned about, I'm more concerned about the front footage. That's, so 60-foot minimum, I think, is a product that's being built throughout the metropolitan area today, very successfully. And as you look up in Grand Park right now with what they've done up there, it's a good product, and it's definitely not, what's the right word to use? I gotta be careful what I say to be politically correct. It's above the norm for most people in the marketplace. How's that? So, but it's a challenge today for both of us. It'll be a challenge when we, if you agree with this, to come in with redoing the development agreement, the annexation agreement, and make sure it works. And that's the challenge we will face as we move ahead, is how we do that. And I'm not sure I answered your question.
No, I got it. I think you did.
Okay.
Because that's actually a very good answer, believe it or not. Because because we've had different ones come in, and it's always like whatever their cheapest, fastest selling thing that would go is it, and then other things might not sell around it. So no, that was a good answer. The 60-foot wide is not. I mean, that's not a problem. I just, as far as that's concerned, and as you know, and we've discussed this, I'm probably the person who wants the smallest lot possible, believe it or not. But then the trade-off for that is there are the amenities in the house. So that's what I'd like to see. If we're gonna agree to the smaller lot size, that the options for the quality of the home itself is there. That we have those
I
options.
think
And
that's reasonable. Absolutely. Absolutely.
go ahead, Jim. I'm done.
Boy, this is one of the quietest groups I've ever been before. This is.
You haven't heard from me yet.
I know. I was waiting. I was waiting.
Well, I hope you were. Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you gentlemen brought this project forward, and it's very interesting. I'm sorry, sir, your name is?
Tom Small.
Okay. You said, to quote you, said it's a challenge for everyone. This entire project's a challenge for everyone, and I could understand that. And Mr. Shoppy used his direct quotation. This new plan meets the needs of the market. Not, it meets the needs of some market, but I wonder if it's the Plainfield market that I envision. And my difficulty, I look at the number of homes that are built on very small lot sizes, 6, 8, 9, 10,000 is not estate size. I think that's relatively small. What disturbs me is we have approved, this particular board has approved a number of projects, and they all look good, and we say the design, and then when it's done, someone will say to me, who improved that thing? Go on Van Dyke Road right now behind Larry's Diner. I look at that thing, and it's an abomination. The houses are practically 10 feet apart. They look like cookie cutters. The windows are the same. The design guidelines are atrocious to me. So when you bring this, I shouldn't point at you. I didn't mean that. When you bring your design guidelines back, they have to really be active, and they have to be really something that I would be proud of, because if I leave this particular board, I want my stamp to say I was proud of that particular project, and I think it's good for Plainfield. Some of the things that you had mentioned, number one, you went from 20 acres to 10 acres in commercial. I'd like to see more commercial, not less commercial. In addition to that, you specifically stated the market demand says no to active adult, which I have campaigned for in this community. We need active adult communities, and no one's proposing it. They don't propose it yet, but the developer says, we'll approve this plan, which is giving me more of what I don't want. So what I'm saying, sir, when you bring your design guidelines back, I certainly hope they're very active, they're very positive, and they really do look good, and something that this board and the community would be proud of. And you'll say yes.
Again, the difference between me and a lot of people may have been before you, I don't build the product. Much like we've done in our other projects, we set out the guidelines that people have to build to. And much like in Combo, we set out the design, reference the guidelines that you people wanted. And before they can come in and build, they got to get your approval. That's part of the deal. You buy lots from us, you have to get your approval to build it.
Well, you bring back an excellent plan, and I think this board would probably support it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I'd like to clarify, the design guidelines that you made reference to,
Yes.
those wouldn't be design guidelines that we would prepare and propose?
I assumed that you were going to be one of the, you were not only developing, that you were also going to be involved with the construction portion. I misunderstood.
The important point I wanted to make was the design guidelines that would be reviewed, that any housing product would be viewed against, would be the village's design guidelines that you already have.
You understand, I assumed that you were going to be involved in the development also. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other?
Oh, I've got a few more comments.
Go ahead, Bill.
One of the things that's come to us recently is a lot of desire for building apartments in town. You're not proposing apartments anywhere in this area, is that correct?
Not have any on this plan, no.
Yeah, that's good. What about homeowner associations? Maybe a little bit early, but since we're talking about developing this in fragments with different builders, how do you propose to handle that? Who's going to be responsible for seeing that those things are put in place? You all, or is it the builders, or?
You know what, I can tell you in the end, will there be an HOA here? Yes. How that will evolve will be based on us working with, I mean, my guess is when this first time this develops, somebody's going to say, we want to buy 30 acres and we want to buy 75 lots. And we have to ensure that, again, even through the HOA, that fits into the overall puzzle. So when they buy from us, they know what they're getting. And the overall, at some point in time, well, right now, I don't envision more than just one big master plan community with an HOA, but maybe be broken down differently in the future. It will evolve. But I'm sure there will be one overall HOA here, much like we have in Grand Park.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about back in 2005 to 8 were best management practices for the open areas and so on. Any thought from your point of view to demand that those kind of things get installed?
Are we talking mostly about best management in terms of runoff and detention and things like that?
Yeah, right.
You know, I would like, you know, I think what we've shown throughout our history here is we're proud of what we develop. If you look at Grand Park and look at how all the open space and the wetlands, everything worked there, I would envision the same thing here. Obviously, we're not, we've been around a long time, we've done a lot here, and I think everything we said we would do, we've done. And I would think the same thing here you would see happen just as you have in our other projects.
Yeah, I think that's important. It's a matter of, the leadership to make sure those kind of things are looked at. The same thing with HOA. There's certain things that got to be in place to make this a successful area. And which brings up the other point, though. I talked to Alan about the cost of extending the services. Nobody's going to develop 500 acres at a crack. You're talking about 30 acres, 75 houses, that sort of thing. How are you going to range to pay for the services up front with that kind of fragmentation?
Well, obviously, much like other projects, probably we as the owner will have to upfront some things. It is, the nice thing about this is when I say half a mile, it's relatively close, I guess, in terms of what we were used to doing. It's gonna be something we manage and something we'll have to cover in the development agreement and relook at the annexation agreement, all those things there to make sure I was covered. But my guess is in Springbank, if we were ready to go and they weren't, my guess we'd put them in and work out some sort of recapture agreement is probably what would happen.
Yeah, probably important, because the village, back in the days you started, people are developing large quantities. We could count on them building roads and infrastructure and so on. Well, those days are gone. We don't get that kind of revenue, and you all don't have the kind of assets to throw into it. So it is a different game plan, but we have to make sure we look at those things to be successful.
There's one good thing for you. You're dealing, instead of with 20 people here, individual guys, you're dealing with one person. That could be a plus for you. Because if you had 20 people own 30 acres out there, that's in the development world, that's kind of like the old days, way back in the old days, but when we were all much younger, that's how it was kind of done. And so,
Well, I like the overall plan. I think if I heard you right, the part south of Walker Road, you don't intend to do any time soon. In fact, you can't envision it being done. And that's where most of the 6,000 square foot or lots are. Do we need to nail those down as 6,000 at this point in time, or could we request a sort of maybe 8,000 minimum? You got one 6,000 up in the top part, and I think that makes some sense. It gives you a variety of housing styles. The lower one is strictly lower cost, if you will, and maybe the market won't evolve to that point. Maybe it'd be better for 8,000.
we'll look at that. I guess we could go back to the old plan and just say there's more duplexes. Well, we understand where you're coming from. Well, let us work on that.
Okay, but overall, I'd like to see it developed, and I think it's good progress. You got a good game plan. You've done it before. You know what it takes to do it successfully. So hopefully it'll work for you and for us. But make sure it's a good-looking product, though.
We'll develop the dirt, and you guys will force somebody to build really good-looking product.
Good. That's fine. Thank you.
I had a question for John, if you could answer this, or if it'd have to go to legal. On these agreements that we make, and me being a new board member, I see quite a few come up from 2006, 2005 that were approved. Is there a way in these agreements, and I'll ask the mayor to put it on the agenda eventually, to put a sunset on these agreements where they would have to come back before the board? Because if this project doesn't get off the ground 5 years from now, the village, the board, and the viewpoint of the town may change. And to be bootstrapped to an agreement we make now, 8 to 10 years from now, I don't believe is just for the future of the board. So what I'm asking you, is there a way, or have you seen a way that you can sunset these agreements to make the developer come back before the board at the end of the agreement 3 to 5 years, if it's not developed, and reapply?
I certainly understand the spirit of the question, and I know there are a number of projects that have come through the approval process that are just kind of dormant, probably even not on staff's radar, not necessarily on the
Right.
trustees' radar. And the suggestion was made recently to at least identify what those are, and so staff can certainly do that, kind of communicate. We've got a handful, some are on the screen here. Harmony Ridge to the west is a significant project in terms of the number of dwelling units that it is entitled for. A handful of others that are of the same order of magnitude. So staff can kind of communicate and have a comprehensive look at what's entitled and not in the development phase. In terms of requiring or putting a sunset, a typical annexation agreement is for 20 years, and I think that term is an important consideration for the owner or developer in as much as it is for the village. We're talking about what the developer is entitled to, but as well, there are some benefits that come to the village. For example, in this project, there are significant improvements to Ridge Road, part of the future Waikaduke Trail, that the village has the ability to compel as part of the annexation agreement. So certainly a trade-off, having that 20-year term. We know we have benefits as part of the contract for 20 years. The developer knows that they have rights and entitlements as well. So moving forward, as we look at any annexation agreement, the terms are subject for mutual agreement and ultimate approval by the village board. In fact, an annexation agreement is one of the areas where the board would have the greatest latitude, because it literally is a contract, and the village can choose to enter that contract or can choose to defer from entering that contract. But previously approved agreements are binding contracts.
Thank you guys very much for coming in and making the presentation.
I read into this one thing. I think I'm hearing move ahead to the next step, and thank you.
Please.
Thank you.
Reminders?
Okay, June 20th is the next village board meeting at 7 o'clock. June 21st is the planning commission meeting at 7 o'clock. And June 27th is the next committee of the whole workshop at 7 o'clock.
Seeking a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. That motion carries.